All right. Welcome to week 3 of BeMoreU speaker interviews. Today I have Judy Lee with me, and
Hi.
she and she is a transformative portrait photographer, and she leads Women Speak circles. So Judy Lee, I would love for you to just share a little bit about who you are and why you're passionate about portrait photography and the Women Speak circles.
Hi, Jenny Lee. Thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. And just a little background on me. I'm a transformative portrait photographer, and I came to this work. Honestly, it started out doing family photography, and it didn't always quite feel right. And I had kind of an awakening, and you discover that women's portrait photography was where I was really drawn to, and the ability to use photography as a way to explore who we are and to really see ourselves. I think through a camera, we can capture somebody's soul and the range of who they are. And I was drawn to this work because I'd spent my whole life hiding. I don't know about you, but I'm sure a
Yeah.
lot of women can identify with like choosing not to be in the picture and always the one being behind the camera and just hiding and not liking yourself in pictures and all of this stuff. And I think that the fact that I've spent my whole life hiding has given me an ability to see other women as who they are. And now I don't hide anymore. So that's how I came to
Sweet.
this work. Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
And I know your experiences with transformative portrait photography, like, well, that is what it is, right? It's a whole experience. So it's not like you just
Hmm.
show up and do a photo, but
Yeah.
you have this whole
Yes.
thing that someone actually goes through.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Because I think photography is a really powerful tool.
Mm-hmm.
And, like the aim of the portrait work that I do is really to capture the range of who you are. And I think a lot of us women don't really see ourselves. We can't really see ourselves. Every time we look at pictures of ourselves, we filter that through our experiences and our insecurities. Self-judgment
Yeah.
is a big thing, right? Where you look at the picture and right away you're like, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that. Like right away you go to nitpicking all the things you don't like about yourself. And that's just the way that we treat ourselves. And so the whole process involves mentoring, it involves pre-consulting. We do video because to reflect on how you feel about yourself and the experience, because I think that that's a bit of a scary thing for a lot of women, and taking yourself a little bit outside the comfort zone is part of the experience. And it's really
Mm-hmm.
not about like the glamour shots, with like the wind in the hair and the fancy dresses. It's really about doing a simple, quiet picture. Who are you in your stillness? Who are you when you take that breath and you shed away all the things, which I believe we're all capable of doing no matter what phase of life or where we are on our journey. But who are you inside when you're not pretending, when you're not doing that fake camera smile that we all do? Like, who are we inside? And it's really about looking at those pictures and figuring out, why do I feel this way about this picture? Why do I feel this way about that picture? And showing that range, and to
Wow.
learn to really see ourselves and to recognize that we are composed of so many different sides of us. We're sadness, joy, happiness, confidence. We're all those things, right? And the more that we embrace who we are, as we are, not another version of who we want to be, but as we are, the more we can love ourselves and show up in this world as our authentic selves. And that's the goal of the portrait experience.
Mm. Well, I see now why you call it transformative, because
Mm-hmm.
that really would be, I'm thinking about how it sounds like such a deep experience to go
It
through,
is, it
especially with
is.
somebody else, right? To like look at
Yeah,
these raw pictures and
yeah, it's funny because one of my friends is a therapist and she's like, you're just doing therapy, but with pictures. So it's kind of like using photography as a tool, basically, to look
yeah.
at yourself and kind of figure out, like, why don't you like that picture of yourself when you're looking a little sad? And then it'll kind of bring up,
Mm.
well, when I was little, I was bullied, or whatever that background is. We all have these stories behind why we see ourselves the way we do. And the more we explore those stories and the more we say them out loud, and
Mhm.
explore that, the more empowering, the more we can own those stories and be empowered.
Ooh, I love that because it connects so well with the other work that you do too with Women Speak, right? Like really stepping into our stories and being vulnerable and courageous to share them. So would you tell us a little more about like what that is? And
Yeah, so I'm a Women Speak Circle leader for Seattle, and it's a program created by Casey Baker. So it's nationwide, and I believe it's international as well. And what makes Women Speak different than other speaking programs is a lot of speaking programs like focus on the facade of speaking, right? Like, you
Mhm.
know, and those things are important, like making sure you stand up a certain way, making sure you project confidence and all of these things. But the thing that makes Women Speak different, that really speaks to me, is what's the underlying thing? Why are we women so afraid of speaking our truths? Why are we women so afraid of using our voice?
Mm.
And if you shed all the stuff, you know, all the things, whatever reasons, specific reasons that each of us may have, what really underlies that is the fact that we don't trust our voices. We don't trust ourselves, right? Because if you trust what you have to say, it doesn't matter how people receive it. It's about you speaking your truth. And, you know, for the Be More You conference, that's, you know, that's what I really want to explore, is give women an opportunity to kind of tap into that and see, like, where is this coming from? Like, why don't we trust ourselves? And I think the more spaces we women have to show up and speak our truth and be supported in that, the more that we will feel confident to start doing it elsewhere. Because the thing about Women Speak is, once you start learning to trust your voice, it's not just about the public speaking. It's not just about getting up in front of other people and speaking in front of big crowds. It's about learning to speak your truth and trust your voice in every area of life, whether that's in your personal relationships, whether you have a business and you're speaking with a client. It's all about how we show up and trusting ourselves. And that's like the basis of everything.
Yeah, I know. I love that so much because it really is. It's not just about that public speaking piece, so like getting up on that stage, but as you mentioned, it bleeds into everything. Like it releases energy around every other area of it, like expressing ourselves, right?
Yeah. And we do like all these practices too, where we learn to take up space. That's like a thing we women don't do. You know, we apologize for being in someone's way walking down the street. I mean, just for being there. We apologize for existing. We apologize when we ask for things, right? I overheard this one woman once. I was at a bookstore and she asked one of the employees for help, and then she apologized for asking her. And it's all about the fact that we apologize for taking up space in this world. And, you know, in Women Speak, we practice doing that. And so that's another thing that we're gonna practice doing at the BeMoreU conference workshop session.
Yes, yeah. Oh, would love for you to share just a little bit about like what your session will look like at Women Speak. And so it's incorporating this woman speak aspect. I mean, be more you. Sorry,
Yeah.
I was like, I just
Yeah,
had that in
women
my
speak on
head.
the brain, yeah.
But it's really leaning into that woman speak
Yeah.
circle experience, right? So like,
Yeah. So it's not going to be Women Speak per se. It's going to kind of
okay,
be like a mesh of, do you know the Moth Story Hour on NPR?
yes, yeah.
So it's like that, but for women specifically. So it's kind of like Women Speak meets the Moth. So those of you who don't know, that's an amazing storytelling hour where people get up and tell stories. And so we're
Mhm.
going to kind of twist that a little bit and be more about speaking our truth and maybe getting up and saying that vulnerable thing that we
Mhm.
all think, but we're so afraid to share. You know, I think that a lot of us feel afraid of using our voices because we think we're the only ones, right? We think we're the only ones who
Yeah.
suffer from all these like feelings of not being good enough and feeling like we need to be somebody else to be worthy of being seen and heard. And I swear, the more I share about those things, about like those deep, dark feelings that I have that I feel ashamed of and feel worried about being judged and rejected on, the more you connect with other people and you recognize that it doesn't matter what our stories are. Underneath all our stories, the details may be different, but we are all so connected and we all struggle with the same things, you know. And at the heart of everything that I do, whether it's the portrait work or workshops or Women Speak, it's about recognizing that we're all so connected, and the more we feel that connection, the braver we become, right? And
I like
so yeah, and so
that.
I want women to feel safe enough to have that space to feel safe so that they could be their bravest selves, right? Because being brave is when we're the most ourselves, and that's like empowering to be able to feel that and then feel supported in that as well. So it's going to be structured in a way so that it's not about what you say. It's not about your fear of rejection. It's not about any of that stuff. It's about having the courage to get up and speak. And that's enough. Like the fact that you got up and spoke your truth is enough, because we are enough. We think we to be good enough, we have to have all these things. We have to do the right things. We have to say the right things. We have to be the right things. And none of that matters. We're enough because we are alive. We're enough because we breathe, because we're just who we are. And it's funny because you and I were talking when we met about this idea of becoming, and you and I agreed, like, it's really not about becoming, it's about unbecoming. It's about going
Yes.
back to that essential self that we all have inside of us. It's all of us walk around buried with this real version of ourselves, this shrink wrapped and we present the world with our shallow selves, right? Because we're so afraid of showing who we are inside. And it's like this journey that we're on is all about unbecoming. It's about shedding the ideas that our parents gave us of who we think we should be. It's about shedding the idea of what society tells us who we think we should be, or our peers, or our spouses, or whoever it is in your life who has influenced you to say, no, I have a voice that's inside of me. I have a person that's inside of me. And that's the real authentic self. And imagine how different the world would be if all of us just showed up that way. There would be so much space and grace and empathy and just recognizing that we all have value underneath everything. And that's enough. That's enough. Like, we don't need anything else. It's all about being and not doing and trying. It's just about being.
Oh, so important. It's
Yeah.
like I feel like you really capture and understand that the core of what BeMoreU is about, and like your work aligns so really well with that. And
Mm-hmm.
something too you mentioned about bravery, like because you mentioned that word, right? And I think often we're trying to jump into confidence, but
Mm.
bravery and courage has this sense where you still experience fear. So like it still
Mm-hmm.
might come up, but then you're acting. You're not letting it stop you.
Right.
And it
Yeah.
sounds
We
like
think we
that's what
have.
you invite people to do, right?
Yes, and we believe that we have to wait for the fear to go away to do things,
Right.
and it's not true. And the way that I even came to this speaking work, to women speak, is I have an incredible fear of speaking. And I'll tell a little bit more about my story and how I came to that work during that workshop at
Sure.
BeMoreU. But I have an incredible fear of speaking. To me, speaking is dangerous. So I have physical reactions to speaking, and it's funny because even before I hopped on with you, I noticed, like, oh gosh, there's my heart, it's racing a little bit. And I think you become brave by doing the things you do even though you feel scared. It's not the other way around. We don't become brave first. And people say to me a lot, you're so fearless when you speak. You're fearless. And it's like, are you kidding me? I'm like, it terrifies me. It still terrifies me. And it's still scary to get up and speak in front of people. It still feels dangerous. My body has that memory of danger from when I was a child and I was silenced, and I still feel that fear. But the bravery and empowerment come from doing it anyway, despite feeling that fear. And I think showing up authentically in this world is an incredible act of bravery. I think choosing to be ourselves, our real selves, not the shallow versions that society tells us we're supposed to be, that in itself is an incredibly brave act. And I think that's our purpose in this world. I think our purpose is to show up as ourselves.
Absolutely. I love that so much. And I so look forward to you being at Be More You and being engaged with the community and your session. Absolutely. So thank you so much for joining us today
Yeah.
and for at the conference. Do you have any, I like to ask people at the end, like if you had a tip or something to like help people just be more themselves, even just a little bit today, what would you say?
Yeah. Gosh, that's a big question.
Yeah.
So many things, but let's go back to that taking space thing.
Yeah.
One of the things that we practice in Women Speak is I ask the women before they speak to stand up and take their time. And I know it seems like a little thing, but it isn't.
Mhm.
I think we don't give ourselves permission to take space. And so sometimes when we are speaking, let's say even this situation with you and me, right? There's this urge to fill up all the space between us with words.
Mm.
And I think when we don't give ourselves permission to take space, that's not how the authentic voice comes out. The authentic voice comes out when you give yourself that permission to take space. And so that's why I kind of stopped, and I'm like, I'm going to speak a little more slowly and give myself permission to take space. So do that. Give yourself permission to take space before you're about to say something. Say, it's okay that I'm not saying anything, because
Mm.
being present is enough. And I
And
don't have to validate that presence with words,
yes.
right? We try to fill everything up in front of us.
Yeah. No, that's so good. And actually, and I love that you practiced it in front of us right this moment. Like, as you're giving the advice, you're like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to pause. And you're right, though. There is that sense of like trying to fill the space, right? Or like reaching out with the words versus just holding the space.
Yeah.
So I really,
Yeah.
really appreciate that.
Yeah. And I wanted to thank you and Michelle for creating this amazing space for us
Oh.
women. I think the more spaces we have, and I know we keep coming back to this word space, but like literal space, right? Literal
Mm-hmm.
time that we create for women to be their authentic selves. We don't have to change. We just have to
Yeah.
have the space to be ourselves and feel like we're not alone. And I think that in itself is powerful. And I wanted to thank you for creating this conference, and what an amazing opportunity for women to show up and feel like themselves. We don't have that in our lives. A lot of us don't have that in our everyday lives.
Mm.
We need more of it.